You need to understand what this ranger found, because it will change the way you walk in the woods. In October of 2009, deep within the Appalachian Mountains, the backcountry of the Cherokee National Forest in eastern Tennessee, a 32-year veteran park ranger named Thomas Clayhorne began cataloging something the Forest Service had spent 20 years not noticing. 17 incidents, 3 valleys, one 6-mile radius that kept showing up in the files of missing hikers, unexplained animal deaths, and rangers who quit without explanation. What he found in those valleys is exactly why park rangers fear the Appalachian white thang. By the end of that month, Clayhorne's trail cameras had footage. That same night, something came down off the ridge and circled his cabin for 41 minutes. He watched it through the windows. It watched him back. He filed no report. He destroyed the footage. He burned a 1983 logbook that proved he wasn't the first. Only one notebook survived, and it found its way to us. What you are about to hear is the account. His name is Thomas Clayhorne, and this happened to him in the fall of 2009. October 14th, 2009 was a Wednesday, a nothing Wednesday. Tom Clayhorne was 55 years old, 32 years a park ranger in the Unaka mountain wilderness, the kind of eastern Tennessee backcountry where the valleys between ridgelines don't see direct sunlight until 10 in the morning. He'd been married twice. His second wife said living with him was like living with a man who was already somewhere else. His cabin sat 7 miles from the nearest paved road. It smelled like wood smoke and old paper. Every horizontal surface had a notebook on it, and Tom set his coffee mug on the cover of each one before he opened it. 10,000 mornings of the same habit. He did it with the new red notebook that Wednesday without thinking. A dark ring, still wet, on the cover. Then he opened it and got to work. 3 months of incident files. Cross-referenced dates, GPS coordinates, weather logs. 17 incidents total. 9 missing hiker cases with no body recovered. 4 livestock kill reports from boundary farms with no predator ID. 4 rangers who filed transfer requests mid-contract and never explained why. Every single one clustered in the same 3 valleys in the Unaka high country. All above 4,200 feet. All within a 6-mile radius. Tom called his regional director, Mike Alderman, on the cabin phone. Alderman went quiet for 40 seconds. Then, "Tom, you've been out there a long time. You're 2 years from your pension. Don't write something down that can't be unwritten." The line clicked dead. Tom didn't file the request. He kept the red notebook. He opened a second one. Outside, the dead hemlock 40 yards north stood bare and silent. The woodpeckers that worked it every morning, reliable for 11 years, hadn't come back in 11 days. Tom logged their absence each morning in the notebook margin. 1 line, every day. He didn't know yet what it meant, but the 6-mile radius on his wall map was circled in red, and whatever was inside, it had been there a long time before Tom Clayhorne started asking questions. 3 days later, on the morning of October 17th, a backpack landed on Tom's desk. It belonged to a hiker named Garrett Mull, 34 years old, a middle school PE teacher from Knoxville, who'd filed a permit for a 4-day loop in the Unaka high country. Search and rescue pulled him out of the Nolichucky River access point 2 nights before, hypothermic, incoherent, no idea where he was. His permit put his campsite 15 miles from where they found him. He had no memory of leaving it. The backpack was standard issue: rain cover, bear canister, a dry bag of spare socks. Nothing unusual until Tom unzipped the front pocket and found the trail camera. It was Tom's own brand, a Bushnell trophy cam, the same model he used for wildlife surveys. He pulled the SD card, loaded it onto his laptop, and started scrolling. 72 images. A deer at the water's edge. Raccoon activity around the bear canister. One shot of Garrett himself, sitting cross-legged on his sleeping pad eating a granola bar, headlamp on, completely relaxed. Normal footage. The kind of footage Tom had reviewed 1,000 times. Then the camera triggered one final time. At 2:47 a.m. The image was white, not overexposed, not washed out by a flashlight or blown by a reflection. White the way a piece of paper is white. Something massive filling the entire frame, moving directly toward the lens. No eyes, no features, just white, and the suggestion of movement, and the fact that whatever it was had been close enough to the camera that nothing else fit in the frame at all. Tom stared at it for a long time. Garrett Mull was found 15 miles away. The timestamp on that image was 4 hours before search and rescue pulled him out. Tom saved the file to a separate folder. He titled it GM Camera. Anomaly. He did not email it to anyone. The archive room was at the back of the ranger station, a converted storage closet with metal shelving and a single fluorescent tube that flickered every time wind hit the north wall. Tom had been meaning to replace that bulb for 3 years. It buzzed and strobed above him now as he pulled boxes, working back through the station's records toward the oldest files on the bottom shelf. He was looking for comparative wildlife data, something that matched the camera image, a known animal, a documented sighting, anything that fit. What he found instead was a logbook from 1983. His predecessors, a ranger named Ellis Pruitt, who Tom had never met, who served 19 years on this exact post and resigned abruptly without explanation. The logbook was the same size as Tom's red notebook, same format, same field report structure. Small, careful handwriting filling every line. Tom almost put it back. He didn't. The entry dated September 29, 1983 read, "Large pale animal observed on the north slope of Coldwater Gap. High-pitched vocalization, sustained approximately 8 seconds. Set hounds on the trail at 0600. Hounds refused to track. Circled back to the truck and would not leave. Have not filed formal report. Do not intend to." The entry below it, 3 days later, was a routine trail maintenance log. Ellis Pruitt resigned 16 days after September 29th. Tom stood in the flickering archive room and held the logbook and did the only thing he knew how to do. He read it again. Slower this time. The fluorescent tube buzzed. The cold from the concrete floor came up through the soles of his boots. Then he noticed the smell. Not the smell of old paper and dust that the archive room always carried. Something underneath that. Copper. Thin and specific, the way it gets in the back of your throat after a bloody nose. The same smell that had come off Garrett Mull's backpack when Tom first unzipped it that morning. He looked at the logbook in his hands, then at the backpack on his desk, visible through the open door. The same smell. Both of them. Tom set the logbook down on the shelf. He did not put it back in the box. October 19th, Tom drove the gravel track into the high country before sunrise. He had 8 trail cameras in the back of his truck, all his own, purchased out of pocket, nothing logged with the station. He spent 2 days placing them across the 3 valleys, spacing each one to triangulate movement across the 6-mile radius on his wall map. Every placement went into the red notebook with GPS coordinates and timestamp. He told no one. The work itself was straightforward, the kind of methodical physical task Tom had always been good at, measure the sight line, strap the housing, angle the lens, move to the next one. His boots on the trail, his breath in the cold air, the mountain doing what it always did. Quiet. Still. Enormous. Too quiet, actually. He noticed it on the second day. The Unaka high country above 4,200 feet runs loud in October. Wind through the ridge gaps, squirrels burning through their last weeks of food cache, the percussion of woodpeckers on dead timber. All of it was gone. Not diminished. Gone. Tom walked 3 miles of trail on October 20th, and the only sound he registered was his own footsteps on the frozen ground. He logged it in the notebook. 1 line. Then he drove back down. On the morning of October 21st, he pulled the SD cards. 5 of the 8 cameras had captured something. Not the same something. Multiple contact events, different hours, 2 separate valleys. Tom sat at his desk and worked through the footage methodically, the way he did everything. What he saw on the clearest clip stopped him cold. Quadrupedal movement, then bipedal, then quadrupedal again, the shift between the two happening faster than it should have, too fluid, no recovery time between gaits. The animal was pale, almost white in the infrared. Large enough that the camera's field of view couldn't contain the full body in a single frame. And it moved wrong. Not wrong like an injured animal compensating, but wrong at a deeper level, the joints articulating at angles that didn't correspond to anything Tom's 32 years of wildlife training had ever put a name to. No heat signature variation. Head, torso, limbs, all uniform temperature. Like something that generated no warmth of its own. The timestamp on the clearest clip, 3:12 a.m. Tom sat with the footage for 6 hours. He ate nothing. Outside, the gravel track that ran from the cabin to the Forest Service Road had a new section of standing water near the lower bend. He'd driven through it that morning, and it was deeper than it should have been. The creek that fed that drainage ran uphill from there. Water didn't pool where Tom had found it. It had no reason to be there. He didn't go check it. Ellis Pruitt's handwriting surfaced in the back of his mind, the way a stone rises in still water. Hounds refused to track. Tom thought about Ray Cutler, his sobriety sponsor, dead 4 years now. A man who had a way of being right about things without enjoying it. Ray used to say, "The moment you start explaining it away is the moment you're already in trouble." Tom caught himself explaining. The joints could be a bear with a degenerative condition. The heat signature could be a camera malfunction. The standing water was probably just a blocked culvert. He stopped. At 11:40 p.m., he stepped onto the cabin porch for air. The sound came from the North Ridge. Real air, real vibration. He felt it move through his sternum before his brain registered it as sound at all. High-pitched, sustained, approximately 8 seconds. Not a coyote, not a hawk, not anything with a name he could reach for. Like a human scream processed through something that had never learned how a human throat was supposed to work. It was coming down slope. Tom stepped back inside and locked the door. He turned to check the motion sensor light on the south wall. The side of the cabin facing away from the ridge, away from the sound, away from whatever was moving through the dark toward him. It was already on. 11:58 p.m. Tom turned off every light in the cabin. He stood at the north window in the dark and waited. The glass was cold against his knuckles when he rested them on the sill. Outside, the tree line was a black wall. No moon, no wind. The kind of dark that doesn't exist in cities. The kind that has weight to it that presses back. His rifle was in the rack by the bedroom door. He didn't get it. His radio was on the desk, charged, ready. He didn't key it. His truck keys hung on the hook by the front door 3 feet from his hand. He didn't take them. It wasn't paralysis. Tom understood that clearly. It was math. Whatever had been moving through these 3 valleys, through Ellis Pruitt's patrol area, through the 6-mile radius, through the footage on his laptop, had been here before Tom Clayhorne was born. It had been here when Ellis set his hounds loose in 1983, and the hounds came back and pressed themselves against the wheel wells of the truck and wouldn't move. A rifle was not a variable it hadn't already accounted for. So Tom stood at the window, and he watched. It came from the east tree line first, not walking out of it, present in it, and then present outside of it, the transition between the two happening in the space between one blink and the next. White, not glowing, not luminous, white the way overexposed film is white, a wrongness of tone rather than a source of light. Large. It moved to the east window and stopped. Tom's heart slammed against his ribs. He did not move. It moved to the south window. The motion sensor light on that wall was dead. Not dark, dead, the way a bulb looks after it burns out. No residual glow in the housing. It stopped at the south window. Tom could hear his own breathing. He pulled it in slow and held it. The copper smell hit him before he understood what it was. Thick this time, not the thin trace from the archive room or Garrett Mull's backpack. Dense and close, the way it gets when the source is right on the other side of the glass. The wood smoke from the fireplace was completely gone, displaced, as though the air in the cabin had been replaced with something else entirely. The refrigerator motor dropped out. The hum Tom had lived with for 11 years, so constant he'd stopped registering it. Gone. The wind outside, gone. Every ambient sound the mountain made at midnight, gone. The silence wasn't quiet. It was the specific absence of everything that was supposed to be there, and it was louder than any sound Tom had ever stood inside. Then it moved to the north window. The window Tom was standing at. It stopped. Tom did not breathe. The cold from the glass pushed against his face. He could see it, not clearly, not in detail, but enough. The shape of something that filled the window frame without quite touching the edges. White and still and close enough that the copper smell was now at the back of his throat, coating it. It had no expression. It had no features he could organize into something nameable. But it was oriented toward him. Whatever it used instead of eyes was pointed directly at his face through 4 millimeters of glass. And Tom Clayhorne, 55 years old, 32 years in these mountains. A man who had never once in his adult life been afraid of the dark. Was afraid. Not the sharp fear of a sudden thing, the deep kind, the kind that settles into the chest cavity and reorganizes something in there permanently. They stood on opposite sides of the glass for a time. Tom couldn't measure. Then it turned. No sound, no footstep, no branch, no displacement of gravel. It moved upslope toward the Coldwater Gap Ridge, and the dark swallowed it whole, and the refrigerator motor kicked back on, and the wind came back, and the cabin was just a cabin again. Tom moved to his laptop. Hands steady. He pulled up the trail camera feeds, all 8, north side first. Every camera on the north side of the property had triggered. Not by motion. The housings had been pressed, physically contacted, from the outside. Each one held a single image. 8 seconds of footage per camera, in sequence south to north, ending at the ridge. Tom opened the first file. White, filling the frame, moving toward the lens. He opened the last one. Camera 7, Coldwater Gap, the furthest north. The timestamp read 2:47 a.m. He reached out and pulled the SD card from the housing slot. It was warm. Not ambient warm. warm the way a phone gets when something has been running on it hard, from the inside, for a long time. Tom set it on the desk. He looked at it for a while. Then he picked up the red notebook and wrote down the temperature with his fingers. He had no thermometer. He used the only measurement he had, warmer than his hand. He wrote that down exactly. 3:15 a.m. Tom stood in the middle of the cabin and didn't move for a long time. His hands were steady. That was the thing about Tom Clayhorne. The shaking always came later. It would come at dawn, when he reached for his coffee mug, and his grip failed, and the mug hit the kitchen floor and he sat down next to it and didn't get up for 40 minutes. But right now, at 3:15 in the morning, he was perfectly still and perfectly certain. Certainty was the problem. He crossed to the fireplace. The Ellis Pruitt logbook was on the desk, 19 years of careful field notes ending in one entry dated September 29, 1983, written in small, tight handwriting by a man who had seen something on the north slope of Coldwater Gap and set his hounds on it and watched the hounds come back wrong. Tom picked the logbook up. He held it for 60 seconds. He thought about Mike Alderman's voice on the phone. Don't write something down that can't be unwritten. He thought about Ellis Pruitt, who resigned 16 days after that September entry. He thought about where Ellis went after he left, whether Ellis ever stopped hearing it. Tom put the logbook in the fire. He watched the cover curl and blacken. He watched Ellis Pruitt's handwriting turn to ash one page at a time. 19 years of record-keeping gone in 4 minutes. Then he went to his laptop and deleted the trail camera footage. All 5 clips. The anomaly folder with Garrett Mull's image. Everything. Not because he doubted what he saw. Because he was certain. And in a job where Mike Alderman controlled his pension, certainty was a liability. The red notebook sat on the desk. Tom looked at it. He didn't burn it. He told himself it was because the fire was dying. The real reason was simpler and harder. He was not ready to be Ellis Pruitt yet. He was not ready to disappear without leaving a record. Ellis had left nothing. Whoever came before Ellis had left nothing. Tom had 17 incidents in a red notebook and GPS coordinates and a SD card that ran warm in his hand at 2:47 in the morning. And he was not ready to let that go into the fire. Not yet. In the morning, he drove his patrol route. Same truck, same gravel track, through the standing water at the lower bend, which was deeper again, the 3rd morning in a row, the creek above it running the wrong direction for it to exist at all. He waved at 2 hikers at the Nolichucky trailhead, filed a routine incident summary, weather, trail conditions, 1 flagged tree near the gap. He did not mention the creature, the footage, the logbook, the eye contact, the sound. He would carry it the way Ellis Pruitt carried it, the way the ranger before Ellis carried it. In these mountains, the thing that sees you doesn't always take you. Sometimes it just makes sure you understand the terms. Tom retired 2 years later. Before he left, he gave the red notebook to someone. That person gave it to someone else. Eventually, it found its way to us. The last entry, written on the morning of October 22nd, after the fire and after the patrol, is 4 words. The hounds were right. And somewhere in the Unaka high country, above 4,200 feet, inside a 6-mile radius that 3 different rangers circled on 3 different maps and never talked about. The woodpeckers still haven't come back.